Hi, I'm Tim of the 1916 Company, and welcome to How To, our series where we wind our way through the world of watches. Today, how to travel with your watch. Travel watches and how to travel with them. Let's get started. The first thing you need to know about how to travel with a watch is that you need to protect yourself, and this starts in customs. We're going to take a US-centric look at this because that's most of our audience, and it's the country I understand best. So start by protecting yourself at US Customs. There is a form called the CBP 4457. It's filled out by you and a customs officer and allows you to declare a watch you are taking abroad. And I cannot overemphasize, travel with just one watch. So having declared this watch, you now have that form and you can present it to customs upon returning. You've protected yourself against paying a duty on a watch you already owned. Now let's talk about the types of watches you would take traveling. It's absolutely important to remember not all travel watches are the same and they work differently. So let's start with the best known kind, the true GMT. Right here we have a Tudor Black Bay GMT. The Black Bay GMT is the kind of watch that gives you 3 time zones, and I'll show you how this works. Your local time zone is at center, so you can see right here where I am, it is 8 a.m. Now Greenwich Mean Time, which is how I recommend you set your 24-hour reference time, Greenwich Mean Time here is 4 a.m. So this is how you use the bezel to recognize a third time zone, either a place you're about to call or a place you're about to land. You start by offsetting from Greenwich Mean Time. So if, for example, Greenwich is 4 a.m. and I want to see what time it is in New York, it's a 5-hour difference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when it's 4 a.m. in London or Greenwich, England, it is going to be 11 p.m. in New York City. That's exactly how a GMT watch works. So I had 1, 2, 3 time zones. And if you got a GMT that doesn't have an independently settable second time zone, you can view 2 time zones using the bezel. Okay, so there's another type of watch called a dual time, and it's not the same thing as a GMT because it's not necessarily in a 24-hour format, and it doesn't include a calculator bezel. We've got an example of a true dual time right here with this Vacheron and Constantin Harmony dual time. So let me show you how this works. The Harmony has 2 time zones. One of them is at center, that's your local time. The other is your reference time, which is hiding off in the corner. Now, normally, a dual time watch will allow you to offset the 2 time zones by about 1 hour. If you have a system like on a Parmigiani Hemispheres or a Jaeger-LeCoultre Duomet UTT, then you can offset by minutes in addition to hours. But for the most part, it is going to be a 1-hour offset. Now here, although both handsets are in a 12-hour format, I have a little AM/PM indicator for the reference time. So I know, for example, whether I'm looking at midday or midnight, and it's very easy to read that AM/PM indicator. So I am looking at midday for my second time zone. That is a dual time. There's also a watch called a world time. And this system was invented in the 1930s by watchmaker Louis Coutier, and the most conventional expression, long used by Patek Philippe, has been the radial display of 24 reference cities or locations that represent 24 principal time zones of the world. Now, as with the dual time watch, these are going to be 1-hour offsets. There are some very elaborate world times, like those made by Vacheron and Constantin, that can recognize 45-minute, 30-minute, or 15-minute offsets. You'll know if you're looking at one of those. So let's say right now I am in New York. You can see on my dial, I'm in New York, US East Coast time, and that it is 10 o'clock at night. And I know this because the 24-hour reference ring adjacent to New York, you put your reference city up at the top, it's 22. Now, 10 a.m., as you can see, is in Bangkok, across, and it's always going to work that way. And you could set the local time independently of the reference city, just like this, and you can see that the hours move in a clockwise direction. The 24-hour reference ring is counterclockwise. Half is blue, half is silver. Those are your day and night regions. But if you want the watch to do all the math for you, you push the little adjuster there and it changes your reference city, but it also moves the time scales. And this is how you adjust your reference city and let the watch keep track of all those other time zones. There's also a hybrid of a dual time and a world time known as a geographic complication. Jaeger-LeCoultre was the first with this in 1989. Today, you'll see the Master Geographic, which is what I have here, as well as the Lange und Zone, Lange 1 time zone, and they both work this way. So you have a second time zone that's independent of the first, and you can see how I'm able to set it independently, but I also have a little trigger that allows me to change my reference city, and now my reference city sits at the bottom. And as I change my reference city, look carefully, you can see that the second time zone is turning backwards as I change my reference city. Now, it works in both directions, but by changing your reference city, you change your reference time, and once again, we've got a little AM and PM indicator. So that is absolutely critical. You gotta remember, this is a 1 hour offset, this is a 1 hour offset, this is a 12-hour time zone, but with an AM PM indicator, again, a 1 hour offset. And this is actually a 3 time zone watch. So depending on which one you've got fundamentally 4 different ways of using a travel time watch when you travel with your watch. The other thing you need to know, and this is absolutely critical, is that crime is a factor, and it's a factor everywhere. Just because you've been to a city before doesn't mean you can 100% be certain it'll be safe. There are new neighborhoods. Areas that are familiar change with time, and I can't overemphasize that if you have any blind spots or lack of knowledge, use this. Not only is it custom safe, but if your Swatch System 51 gets ripped off, you can laugh about it later. Okay, what else is important? Well, it's absolutely critical that when you are going abroad, you keep your watch with you at all times. A watch that's left in a safe can be stolen. A watch that's left in a sock drawer can be stolen or forgotten. It's critical that you keep the watch on your wrist. This will help protect you against theft, but also a simple slip of the mind. Now, when going overseas, there's by the book and then there's reality. By the book, in theory, you do have to pay some sort of bond, which is temporary, or duty, which is forfeit, when you bring a watch into most countries. Now, in practice, very few countries will prey on a person wearing just one watch. It's assumed to be a personal article. Problems arise when you have more than one watch, and don't go full Nick Hayek Sr. and cover your wrists in watches. It might make you a character during the trade shows, but it's also going to get you flagged by customs. Stick to one watch for customs' sake and for the sake of security, and understand ahead of time. Call a consulate, call an embassy, call ahead to the national airline for that country, and find out what kind of declaration and duty might be necessary in advance. China, Hong Kong, Singapore, the EU, Switzerland, they're all a little bit different, so educate yourself. One more point of advice. Always be clear when you're entering a country that you're going to take the watch back with you. There might even be a special form you can fill out to let customs know that you're going to take the watch back out of the country with you. Not only do you document what you had with you, but you avoid the problem that befell Arnold Schwarzenegger in early 2024 when he had a watch he didn't declare that he planned to sell at auction. Just thought you'd want to know. And that is how you travel with a watch.